Imagine, for just a moment, that you are standing on the docks of a small English port town on a warm summer morning in June of 1348. The salt air is thick, the gulls are crying overhead, and the sound of merchants haggling fills the narrow streets behind you. Life, to all appearances, is ordinary, even peaceful. You have no way of knowing that somewhere, on one of the ships bobbing gently in the harbor, something invisible, something ancient and merciless, has just set foot on English soil for the very first time. You have no way of knowing that nothing will ever be the same again. The town is Melcombe Regis, what we now call Weymouth, on the Dorset coast. It is one of England's busiest ports, a lively hub where wool goes out and wine comes in, where Gascon traders and English sailors rub shoulders on the quay. 2 ships have arrived from Gascony, in the southwest of France, and nobody thinks anything of it. But one of the sailors on board is sick. His skin is burning. Beneath his arms and at his neck, hard swellings have appeared, dark and tender, like something terrible pushing up from beneath. He does not know it. But the fleas clinging to the rats in the hold of his ship carry something far deadlier than anything England has ever encountered. Within 3 days of the first men of Melcombe falling ill, they are dead. To understand what is about to happen, you have to understand the England these sailors sailed into. It is a kingdom of roughly 6 million souls, a deeply rural world where nearly 9 out of every 10 people live not in cities, but in small villages scattered across fields and forests. Life is bound to the land, to the church, and to the lord of the manor. The great city of London, with perhaps 70,000 people, stands in a class entirely of its own. Noisy, crowded, magnificent, and dangerously filthy. The streets are narrow rivers of mud and refuse. Animals wander freely. The Thames carries everything the city does not want. It is a world of extraordinary beauty and extraordinary squalor, sitting side by side. Under King Edward III, England is also, improbably, a kingdom riding high. Just 2 years earlier, in 1346, English longbowmen had humiliated the French cavalry at the Battle of Crécy. The country is proud, ambitious and busy. Trade is flowing. Churches are being built. The wool merchants are prospering. Nobody is afraid. Nobody, that is, except perhaps those who have heard the dark whispers filtering out of Europe. Reports of a pestilence sweeping through Italy, through France, leaving whole cities in silence. But those are distant places. England is an island. Surely it cannot reach here. It reached here. From Melcombe, the plague moves with a terrifying, relentless logic. It does not march. It creeps, carried by rat fleas, by human contact, by the very air in crowded spaces. By August, it has reached Bristol, England's second greatest city. An account written not long afterward describes the city as so devastated that the living could barely bury the dead. People are fleeing, but in their flight, they carry the pestilence with them, scattering it like seeds across the countryside. Dorset, Somerset, Devon. One by one, the counties of the southwest begin to fall silent, and then comes the autumn, and with the autumn, London. It is around the 1st of November, 1348, the Feast of All Saints, when the Black Death enters the capital. And here, in this teeming, overcrowded city, it finds everything it could possibly want. The streets are full. The markets are full. The churches are full. In the poor quarters, families of 8 or 10 share a single room. The disease moves through the city like fire through dry grass. Within weeks, the churchyards are overwhelmed. The city opens new mass burial grounds outside the walls. At Smithfield, at East Smithfield, and even there, the bodies arrive faster than they can be covered. Contemporary records speak of more than 200 corpses buried on some single days in the new ground beside Smithfield alone. And that is only one burial site in one city. Think about what those days must have looked like. Think about the bells. The church bells of London were supposed to toll at each death, a long-established custom of mourning. But by the winter of 1348, The bells are ringing so constantly, so ceaselessly, that the authorities order them to fall silent. The sound of mourning has become unbearable. The city that never sleeps is learning, for the first time, a terrible quiet. What does the plague actually do to the human body? The victims of the Black Death do not go gently. For most, the first signs are a fever, a creeping weakness, a chill that no fire can warm away. Then come the buboes, those swollen, agonizing lumps in the groin, the armpit, the neck, sometimes growing as large as an egg, sometimes as large as an apple, black and hot to the touch. From these, the disease takes its name. For some, dark blotches appear across the skin as blood vessels collapse beneath. Internal bleeding follows. Most of those infected are dead within 3, sometimes 4, days. A few last a week. Almost none survive. In an age before microscopes, before germ theory, before antibiotics, the people of medieval England have no framework to understand what is happening to them. They believe, desperately and sincerely, that God has turned his face from England, that the end of the world has come. And who can blame them for thinking so? Because the plague is not merely killing individuals. It is dismantling the very structures that hold medieval life together. The parish priest, who is supposed to hear the last confessions of the dying and administer the last rites, is himself exposed with every visit, and clergy are dying at terrifying rates. In some parts of the country, nearly half of all priests perish. In the Diocese of Salisbury, bishops are appointing new parish priests on 22 out of 30 days. In a single November month, each new appointment filling the gap left by one more death. With no priest to offer the last sacraments, medieval Christians face something worse than physical death. They face dying without absolution, without the comfort of the church, without any hope of heaven. The terror is not only of the body, it is of the soul. Out in the countryside, the consequences are no less devastating, only slower, quieter. Villages empty house by house. At harvest time, normally the great celebration of the English rural year, when the fields are golden and the whole community turns out to bring in the grain, fields are left standing. The crops rot where they grew, because there are simply not enough hands left to gather them. Livestock wanders masterless through abandoned lanes. Manor Court records from Dorset tell us that out of 300 tenants, 140 died in 2 years. Nearly half, gone. Some villages do not merely shrink, they vanish entirely. The earth swallows them. Even today, if you walk in certain parts of England, you can find the faint green ridges in a meadow where a village once stood, silent testimony to that terrible winter of 1349. The social order, too, begins to crack. Medieval England runs on a rigid hierarchy. The lord at the top, the villain at the bottom, every man and woman bound to their place by law and custom and the will of God. But when half the people are dead, when labor is suddenly, desperately scarce, something shifts. Surviving peasants begin to notice, perhaps for the first time, that they have power. Lords who once dictated terms are now bidding for workers. Men who were serfs, legally tied to the land, begin to walk away and find better conditions elsewhere. The wages that the statute of laborers tries to freeze at pre-plague rates simply cannot hold. The world is changing beneath the feet of those who want to keep it still, and nothing will put it back the way it was. By the summer of 1349, the Black Death has swept the length and breadth of England. Yorkshire falls, East Anglia falls. The great cathedral cities of Norwich and York are brought to their knees. And then, as inexplicably as it arrived, it begins to recede. Not because anything has been done to stop it.
Swelling grows worse.
Not because the doctors have found a cure.
Must be strong.
Their treatments of bloodletting
Pray,
and burning
husband.
herbs and fleeing bad air are useless against Yersinia pestis. It recedes because it has, in some terrible sense, run out of people to kill. By the time the pestilence finally releases England from its grip, somewhere between 40 and 60% of the entire population is dead. 1 in every 2 people, perhaps more. the greatest single catastrophe in English history. But here is the thing about catastrophes, the thing that history teaches us again and again. Out of even the darkest destruction, something new eventually struggles into the light. The England that emerges from the Black Death is profoundly, irreversibly different from the England the plague found. The survivors inherit a landscape of empty houses and untilled fields, yes, but also a world where the old certainties have been swept away, where a peasant's labor is suddenly worth something, where the feudal bonds that tied a man to his lord for life are beginning, slowly, to loosen, where the church, having failed to explain or prevent the catastrophe, is losing some of its absolute authority over human minds. The seeds of what we might one day call modernity are germinating in the ruins. Decades from now, those seeds will grow into the peasants' revolt of 1381, into the questioning of church authority, into a slow grinding transformation of English society that will eventually produce a very different world. So when you look back at the summer of 1348, at that unremarkable morning in the harbor of Melcombe Regis, at the sick sailor stepping off his ship into the English sunlight, you are looking at more than the beginning of a catastrophe. You are looking at the moment when medieval England began, without knowing it, to end. A civilization brought to its knees by something it could not see, could not understand, and could not stop. A people who lost everything, and then, slowly, painfully, improbably, began to build something new. That is the story of the Black Death in England, and it is a story that reminds us, even now, of just how fragile the world we inhabit truly is, and how astonishing it is that, in the face of that fragility, human beings keep going anyway.